Welcome to the Being Curious Show. I'm Brian Mariani, founder of No Shift Own.
And I'm Kelly Wagner, publisher of Edge Magazine. Our show is about curiously connecting teachers and seekers on a wide range of topics in a safe space. Few topics will be off limits, and we have some amazing guests to share with you.
Our intention is that our conversations will spark your own curiosity to create a life that lights you up and inspires you to be kind, thoughtful, open-minded to yourself and others.
We are on AM 950, Sundays at 2 p.m., and all podcast platforms. So, Brian, what are you curious about today?
Kelly, I'm really curious because when we were doing our pre-interview, you were like, Brian, I don't even have words. I'm seeing pictures already with this guest. And so we weren't even really able to have a conversation before because you're already like, and she's just nodding. For everyone who's listening and is not watching, Kelly's just nodding and she's looking. And, she might actually talk. Are we going to get some words?
No, that's okay. I'm just going to speak in sign language.
Okay.
Like I'm doing today is a telepathic show and go. No, like this.
Our radio show is coming to you in pictures from our co-host, Kelly.
Woohoo, and sound. And a little bit of light language. The guides are like they've got something to say, and it's really interesting that so we pre-tape some of our shows, and this has been an interesting day, and we almost to the point where Jill was so gracious in saying, hey, should we reschedule? And I'm like, nope, we're in the zone. And now I'm sitting here alone in the studio. We got Brett going on, and I'm like, it's full. It's like stadium seating. And I'm like almost I'm getting hot because of all of everything that's coming in. So I know we weren't supposed to reschedule. I know that we're supposed to be here today. And I am actually, here we go. We have the honor of having Jill Goux with us today, and she is a sacred light worker who comes to the table with over 28 years of experiences. She's a seasoned intuitive practitioner and mentor, channel, master dowser, transitional coach, and spiritual teacher who empowers others through life-changing experiences. And we're not talking baby life-changing experiences. These are amazing. She coined the phrase the Energy Renovator with a clear mission to help people better understand and manage their energetic systems while raising the vibration of their environment, body, mind, and spirit. So they go from survive to thrive. Oh my gosh, like amazing. Jill has facilitated numerous retreats across the country and around the world, and she's a conscious leader who enjoys sharing her knowledge and skills with others. She is a joyful force that incorporates laughter and play in everything she does. She is magical. Thank you so much for being here. I didn't even think I'd be able to do the intro, Brian, and I pulled it off. And I think I only slaughtered like 3 words. Jill, welcome to the Being.
You made up a couple words. It was other than that. It was.
I made up a couple, right? Like you could laugh and giggle, but you know what? At least it wasn't telepathic.
I was impressed.
No, you weren't. Impressed. You can just make fun of me. Jill, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, welcome. So one of our favorite things to do with our guests is we're very fortunate that we get to interview extraordinary people. And, sometimes it's a published author or a master in their craft or a business owner and everywhere in between. And today, of course, we're with you and you are a master of your craft. And that's a combination of energy and, you've made up this word, the renovator. There's a lot of amazing things that you do. And there's a whole history, there's a whole life experience that has enabled you to be who you are today. And so we're always curious to kind of take a step back and see if there's something that you could remember kind of early on that as you reflect on your life today, you go, oh, that was the inception point to really starting me on this path or something like that. If you could share something, it would always, we love hearing those stories, but we know our audience does as well.
Right on, right on. So when you asked that question, Brian, something sparked immediately. I've had several different things. Like I was always kind of a psychic child and kind of, in my own world a lot of times. But I can honestly say that this is the moment that I feel like I stepped onto my spiritual path and journey and really started cracking open and waking up into the world of energy. I was in my 20s. I was working at a restaurant in Minneapolis. And one evening after late, musicians from a famous band came in, and they were in the establishment. They were not in my section, but a very strange thing happened. The keyboard player, his name was Timothy, we locked eyes from across the restaurant and we started walking towards each other. And I want to always make this clear. It's like, it wasn't like a sexual attraction thing. Yeah. It was like we were being pushed together by forces, and we just kind of were walking towards each other. We met in the middle, and he was like, hey, and I'm like, hey. And one of us said to the other, I feel like I'm supposed to talk to you. And the other one said, I feel like I'm supposed to talk to you. And he said, I think I'm supposed to tell you about this book. I think you're supposed to read this book. And it was the Celestine Prophecy. So he wrote it down. He said, I just finished it. It was mind blowing to me. And he's like, if you ever want to talk about it, here's my name and number, feel free to call. Gave me this little piece of paper and walked on. And a few months later, I grabbed the book and I opened it. And that was the book that actually woke me up into understanding kind of, I felt like it was talking to me and like my energy and how I understood things, but nobody ever shared it with me growing up. I always felt alone and like the weirdo. And I was like, holy crap, this is awesome. I never did call him, but fast forward like 23 years down the road, a different friend of mine was doing a podcast and she had the same question for me, Brian. She's like, I want to know, like, when did you get on your spiritual path and journey? When did you kind of like step onto this road? And I shared this story with her. So you ready for this one? Somebody found her podcast and sent a text to Timothy and said, you're going to want to hear this, because in the podcast, I said, I never reached out to him and I always wanted to thank him because I do feel like he was this magical catalyst in my life. And it's like, to me, I share this story because we never know like how strangers are going to affect us or come into our lives and be game changers. I literally had like a 2-minute conversation with this guy 23 years ago. He told me about this book, and I can honestly say that was the moment I got on my spiritual path and journey. And I went to school and I started learning Reiki and different healing modalities. And so 23 years later, I'm sharing this with my friend on her podcast. Somebody finds it and says, oh my gosh, you've got to listen to this. And she didn't give any preface of like, what does that mean? He thought it was like, do I need to lawyer up here or something? Right. Like some lady from 23 years ago is, maybe, who knows, right? So he listens to it, gets very emotional, ends up reaching out to me through Facebook and just said, you know what, you made my day by sharing that I made a difference in your life. And he was completely moved by it. And then ironically, like a month after we connected, he was having a concert in town, like a mile from my house. So I met him in person again, like 23 years later, and we've been friends ever since. And the person who found that ended up becoming his wife. And so we've had dinners together, and it's just been this amazing, like, who could write this stuff? You know what I mean? Like, how did that all navigate itself together? So I even thank his wife for finding the podcast and, sharing it with him.
Wow.
Is he?
I know.
It's like every moment I think it's a bookend to that story and I'm wildly impressed. You continue on and you just keep up leveling the story. It's, oh my gosh. Wow.
You guys have a contract together. Just telling you.
What did you say, Kelly?
You guys have a contract together.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I just kind of get that. And it's it's a little teeny one and you guys like there, but it's this really beautiful. Yeah.
I'm gonna ask a curious question. Can you, and maybe you haven't thought about this before, maybe you have, can you think of what was going on in your life prior to the moment you two walked up together? That being the person that you are today, you could go, okay, I I brought about that moment. Do you have an awareness of that at all?
That is a really great question. I've never really thought about it that deeply, Brian, but I love that question.
You have to answer in the moment. It's got to come
I know,
through.
I'm going to. So the first thing that came to mind was that, I was young and I had just gotten into this job that I thought was so great, waitressing. And, when you're right out of college, you're making all this money. I feel like I was in just this flow of being in the moment and really being present and not trying to push or pull things. I just felt like every day was like, let's see what happens today. And, who's coming in. So just thinking about it, that's what I would say. I was more like in the flow of this joyful young life of just exploring what's possible. I think that's the moment I was in.
It's really interesting that was your instinctual reaction. And I think the truthful, actuality of that moment. And it's really potent in this moment because the state that you are in is the state that we all start in as babies and children.
I've got goosebumps.
We are
now.
literally, we're literally in a place of flow. We're just like, okay, I'm going to try to put this foot ahead of the other one. And I don't really know what's going to happen, but I'm going to do it. And I'm learning all these things. And truthfully, there's like this, there's this terrible tragedy that people believe that being an adult is like learning all this stuff and being really highly skilled and doing all that. That's part of the picture. But the best thing that's available to anyone is to try to get back to that peak state of just being curious, being in flow, being open. And that was one of those moments for you as a 20-year-old. You probably had a lot of these experiences through middle school and high school that were challenging like they are for all of us. And then there's this moment where you're like, ooh, I'm kind of like owning my life a little bit. Like I've got a little my own money. That might be like a first time experience. And then this happens and it opens up the portal to this life that you've now created.
Yes. And I want to add to that, Brian, because I 100% agree with what you said. But also I think being curious is like game changer. But I think you need to also pepper in and sprinkle in laughter, fun, playtime. And adults, I think as adults, we forget to play so much. And to me, that's where the magic is when we are in that. And if you think about what you just said, when we're babies, when we're children, when we're young, we have that spark and it's play, it's innocence, it's that joy and curiosity. I think kids are so curious. And I think the more that adults can be like that, that is where the magic is. It seriously is. And if we can be in that flow, bam, you see what shows up.
I love what you said about laughter. And I'm going to admit something on the air here that only a few people know. Part of my morning routine is I literally make my nutritious breakfast and I sit down and I watch an episode of The Office. Now, I know a lot of people probably don't like that show, but for me, it makes me laugh. And so like there's this little piece of my day where I just get to be silly. I like literally look around and I'm alone and I'm like laughing by myself, but it's an important part of the day. So
yeah, that's awesome.
I love that you brought that in.
I thought you were going to say laughing yoga, which is always fun to do.
I haven't done
videos of it. It's silly.
I'd probably scare people out of the class. I don't know. Who knows? As we're moving into segment 2, I was looking through your website. I know you had this other experience in Costa Rica that's a little bit more recent. Maybe if you want to talk about kind of what was happening in your life at that time, because in segment 2, I'd love to really
dive into
hear about what happened there.
Yeah. So at that time in my life, I had been hosting and facilitating retreats for quite some time. I love doing them, and they've been in the States and out of the States, in Italy. And I had been the facilitator, and I had kind of come to this place of like, ooh, it's time for Jill to fill her cup and go to a retreat for Jill. And so I had Costa Rica as a place to travel on my bucket list. And then one of the people that I adore, friend, follow, he was doing his very first retreat in Costa Rica. So I'm like, bam, all right, here we go. We can do 2 things here. We can go to to this retreat and see Costa Rica. And so that was the opening for me to take some time for myself, do self-care, and step into this retreat with really, I remember going there going, Jill, what's here for you? What's possible? What do you want to work on? What healing is needed? I was just really in that space of like open vulnerability. I'm ready. Like I kind of get to a place where it's like, I'm ready to rock and roll. Like, let's do this. And I feel like that time in my life was just this, it was like turning over the card. It's like, I've been the facilitator for so long now. And it's like, okay, now it's time for me to receive and for me to learn or explore and expand into my own energetic field and in my own curiosity. Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I was for that.
That's fantastic. Okay, you guys, wrapping up segment 1. We're here with Jill, who is an intuitive practitioner, mentor, channel, master dowser, which we're going to get into, transformational coach, and spiritual teacher. And we're having fun and we're being curious. We'll be back. And we're back, you guys.
Back,
woohoo! Paper, rock, scissors. Brian's got it. Okay, go for it.
I can't wait till we have our bloopers segment because we're sitting in studio, everyone, and I'm looking at Kelly, and I gave her some guns, like, okay, it's your show. And then I saw her taking notes, and I was like, okay, it's mine. And literally, as I started talking, you started talking.
Yeah,
it's perfect.
Well, you know what? I think what it is, well, first of all, neither of us went to broadcasting school. So like ever.
God,
but we have an honor for each other. And if someone is, we honor each other. And I think everyone
totally.
just kind of had that real moment of Kelly and Brian and Kelly. And it's all Jill's fault. So there.
Okay, I'll take the blame.
Perfect. For our serendipity honor of each other, like, yeah, you can take the blame on that one.
For everyone who's tracking, listening to this, we are ready to hear your story about Costa Rica. You're open, you're ready, you're asking good questions. You're in an absolutely beautiful place. What happened?
Yeah. So I get there and I have my own little, like a casita or a little place out in the jungle. And where we were staying, everything was built on the side of this mountain or this hill. And so it was really nestled in the jungle. And it was about the second or third night of the retreat. And I was woken up in the middle of the night around 3:30 in the morning. My shades were moving. There were sounds knocking. And so clearly I had some visitors that wanted me up. And once I got up, there was this huge wave of like emotional outbursts. I was like, all of this fear was coming up and just rolling through. And what it was connected to was me really stepping in more fully into my power. But there was a fear with that. And so I was moving through all of these emotions and, different things were coming through. And I had this notion that I needed to go outside, but there was a fear of going outside at the same time. It was the strangest thing, you guys. It's like all of this was, Kelly, I know you can track this.
I am
like
tracking.
All this stuff is going on. It's like, I want to, but I'm scared to, and I need to, but I can't, and I won't. And it was like back and forth, but I was just bawling and, crying uncontrollably. And it was a force that came through. Well, I eventually made my way outside, and, all of, people that do energy healing and have intuitive gifts, we're all different in our own unique way. I don't have the gift to see people's auras or to see things with my eyes open. I have visions with my eyes closed. So when I walked outside, I was standing out looking at the jungle here. And all of a sudden, this huge blue, I'm going to call it an angel. It was probably about a foot by a foot. And it was electric blue, like it was like a neon light, but it was this bright blue. And it kind of started flashing and went poof, and it appeared before me, and it was doing a figure 8 around a huge palm about 7 feet in front of me. And I kept saying out loud, oh my God, I can see you. I can see you, because that's not my gift. So I'm like, my eyes are open, and I could see this blue angel just moving around in front of me. And then all of a sudden, about 10 seconds later, it just vanished off. And then I heard, put your hands out. And so I put my hands out like this. And then there was this really searing hot spiral going clockwise in my right hand. And I could just feel this energy swirling in my right hand. And I always like to share this little nugget of what was going on in my head, because it's an example of how our ego bumps into things like this. You know, we're just like in awe. And then I'm like, well, why isn't anything happening with my left hand?
Yeah.
Like, what? Hello? Like, there's this hand over here. So
that was my first thought, by the way. I was like,
right?
What about the left hand?
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So the heat, it's heating, and then it kind of like chills out. Then I hear move over this direction. So they asked me to move kind of this way. Then all of a sudden, there was this very cold, huge, it felt like a drop of water, like somebody was pouring like a cup of water into my hand, but it was very, very cold. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I heard, bring your hands to your heart. And I had brought my hands to my heart. Now, keep in mind, this was like an hour and a half later that I had been crying for an hour and a half straight. So, you know, when you're crying at that point where you're like, you can't even catch your breath. I was at that point. And the minute I brought my hands to my heart, it was this calm peacefulness. My breath, it was gone. The crying was gone, and I was just at peace. And I heard, take a walk. And I'm going to share a little funny. I'm going to admit this on the air today too. So this is the visual, which is funny, but I am a very strange sleeper. I like very cold rooms. And then I like to be just long johns, long sleeve shirt, you know, socks, everything. So I'm in the middle of the jungle in my snowmobile suit, PJs, walking in the jungle when it's like 90 degrees in the middle of the night. And I hear the voices head up here. And so I go up, and there's this infinity pool on just this level. And they're like, get in. So I take my, you know, pants and I roll them up to my knees, and they're like, yeah, no. I'm like, okay. So I disrobe and I get in the pool of water, and I'm floating on my back and just kind of slowly submerge in the water. And I come out, and it's hard to put words to it, but it felt like a rebirth. It felt like an attunement. What are you getting, Kelly?
Well, I got death and rebirth like about 3 minutes ago, and I was like, it was over your head, and I was like, okay, waiting, and then you said that, and I was like, that's what you did. Yeah, that's what the heat was.
Yeah, and so it was this cleansing water kind of bath, and I got out of the water, and I grabbed my clothes, and I kind of scooted back to my place, and I was exhausted. I'd been up since 3:30 in the morning. I was going to go back to bed, and I heard them say, nope, take out your journal and start writing. They wanted me to write this down because I would forget, or, they wanted me to just remember and have some of these notes down. And so that happened during the retreat. And to be honest, I was floored by it, but I was a little hesitant to like share this with others, because I didn't want to, people to be like, well, how come she's got all these things happening to her and I don't have it happening to me? So I kind of kept it on the down low, but I reached out to a couple people and just said, this went down. Like, can I just talk to you about it? Because it's a lot. So I, talked to a few friends, and then I went home after the retreat. And about 3 weeks later, I was laying in bed, getting ready to close my eyes, go to sleep. And all of a sudden, 5 different light languages came out of my throat and my mouth. My phone was just out of reach because I wanted to record it, but I would have had to get up, and I didn't know if it would stop what was happening. So for 20 minutes, 5 different languages came through my voice, and I was just thinking, what the hell is going on here? Like, what is happening? And so that was kind of when the light languages started. So interestingly enough, I reached out to the person who hosted the retreat, and I was kind of sharing with him and checking in with him. There were 4 of us. There were 44 people at the retreat, and 4 of us left there doing light languages. We didn't know each other. We found out later down the road when we were at another event again, and we started sharing things. So there was some activation that happened in Costa Rica with opening channels for light languages to come through. And
I saw it like a portal.
What was that?
I saw it like a portal. Like that was like you guys were in it. And just because I know you have some people in our community, and the AM 950 listening world, probably not like the Edge community. The Edge community is all like, woohoo. But in those that might not know what light languages are, could I ask you to do a little disco side on,
Yes.
because light languages are amazing. I've experienced Jill, Leslie, another partner of Edge. She's also done, and actually she's been on the show. Light
Leslie's
languages.
a friend of mine. We do stuff together too.
You guys are awesome. I can see you guys playing together. Oh my gosh.
Oh, we do. Yeah.
Describe like in any way you can, describe light languages. And if you're even called to any time during this time together to open up and let something flow, go for it. But I know there's people that are curious, because I'm sure when you talk about it, some people just kind of look at you and go, that's kind of interesting. And then I bet the first question is, what did you say?
Oh, yeah, right. So I will give you a little 411 about that. Light languages are, the ones that I channel are both ancient and galactic. So it's a combination. And they come through my throat chakra. And it's a vibration, sound, tone, frequency that is given or gifted to whoever's receiving it, to whoever's listening to it. And it comes to them on their soul level, their DNA level, and on a cellular level, to help them remember who they are, where they came from, and to help them to continue to evolve. And the wonderful thing about it is that it adjusts to each person's resonance depending on where they're at. So it's kind of like you get what you are ready to receive from it. And the way I describe this to people when they're brand new, because I've done a lot of group where there's a large group and not just one-on-one. I do that as well, but in groups too. I just say, think of this as like ancient and galactic music that you're listening to, that's coming to you. You don't have to figure it out. And part of the thing that when the light languages started coming through for me, they worked with me a lot first on Jill for a long time. I didn't do light languages for anyone for about a year and a half. I sat and worked on myself and was getting different information that was coming through. And one of the main things that they kept trying for me to understand, because to be honest, I was kind of bitter. I said, if I'm going to channel, I want to channel in English. I want people to understand what I'm saying and what messages I have for them. And they're like, oh, no. They're like, you guys down there, you are so stuck in your thinking brain. And they said, this is a way for this information to be delivered to you, and it bypasses your thinking brain. Mm-hmm. You don't have to figure it out. You don't have to give meaning to it. Just receive it. Have it like music. Like, let it come in and then see how you feel. Work with it energetically. And so I always, tell people, they're like, what does that mean? It's like, you're not going to know what it means. They want you to not ask that question. Like, right. That's part of the journey, is to just be in this. And they want us to start thinking about, they kept saying over and over to me, it's sound, frequency, tone, vibration. That's where it's at. They want us to be more in that sensory mode of feeling versus thinking, because they say that's the trap. That's what gets us in trouble. That's what, we always have to make meaning of something. They said, just start to feel it. Feel the vibration. Allow yourself to receive it. So that's kind of how I describe it to people that are new to it. And, that hopefully can help them to just be open to see what shows up. And everyone is so different. I have some people that start laughing and giggling. Some people start crying. Some people are moved. They feel rushes of heat or prickly hands or waves of emotion. Like it's different for every person, but most people, they feel or sense something when it's coming through.
That's great.
So what?
Yeah.
What does it look like? I know you do a number of different things, but I'd love for people to get an idea of what it's like to work with you, connect with you. I know you have a number of things that, group work, individual work. Give our audience an idea of what this in particular, like if someone was receiving this light language,
Sure.
Paint that for us.
Yeah. So I do a variety of different things. One of the ways that you can work with me is one-on-one, doing an energy renovation soul session. And that's where it's a custom designed kind of, we get together and I energetically see where you're at, what your intention is. And during those sessions, the light languages many times come up, and I inform people, and I even ask people, I'm like, if the light languages want to come through, are you okay with that? Because everyone's at a different space and place. And so I want to make sure to honor them and not scare them, or, if they're confused by it, some people are just like, no, thanks. I'm like, okay, that's fine. So when we're in session, and the light languages come through, it's interesting because it's not only like a language, but it can be like a long sound that comes out. It can be different sounds that come through. And when I have done light language channeling in groups, they come through my hands a lot of times, and even my entire body. So I've been in sessions sometimes with people with a group, and I'll say, we're going to do 3 different channelings here. The first one, have your eyes closed. The second one, I want you to just feel like when you want to open your eyes or when you don't. And the third one, I want you to have your eyes open the entire time. And it comes through me almost like sign language in my hands. But when my whole body gets involved, it moves. It's like a dance. It's an interesting phenomenon. And I've had people say, like, there's different levels to that when you watch it and listen to it both.
It's a different frequency.
Yeah, totally. Adding the movement to the sound. It kind of, to me, it's a delivery system that delivers it on a different frequency.
Okay, so just letting you know, I see like all this stuff above your head. It's just like, yeah, right. Even the way that you're speaking, you can tell it's like, I'm just feeling it, but that's okay. Yeah. So we're wrapping up this segment. Oh my gosh, we could go in so many different directions. Jill is on an amazing adventure right now that we're going to talk about, and it's called Trip the Light Tour, and I've actually been following her on social media. She was in Hawaii, and I was like, yay. Like, oh my goodness, so much to share, and I know this is going to turn into a book, and it's going to turn into quite an adventure. It is the Being Curious show with Kelly and Brian and Jill. There's a lot of stuff going on, you guys. I wish we could do this as a 2-parter. I really do, because we're just scratching the surface. Okay. Wrapping up segment 2, grooving into segment 3. And thank you. Yeah, I just get a mahalo. I just feel like I need to say a little mahalo. We'll be back. Time it so the little hay comes out, because I keep waiting for that. I'm just kidding. Hi guys, we're back. There we go. Brian's doing sign language.
We are back. We're back.
Jill's doing the grooving. So Jill, where do you want to go from here? We talked about your tour, but I don't know. There's something that wants to come through. Just telling you, just feeling it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Trip the Light. That's been the tour that's been happening in the last 6 months, and it's been an amazing journey.
So where are you in the world right now?
Right now, I'm currently back in Minneapolis.
Oh, you're back in Well, I saw your sound bowls. I just want to I'm just looking at that going, oh, those are pretty. Yeah. So Jill has talk about throwing caution to the wind and jumping off a cliff and asking not only to be supported, but to giving back. You have been on this adventure that I don't want to say once in a lifetime, because I think that this is something that's far more than that. But I'm going to take the words out. You tell us about what inspired you, and I just feel the community has come and supported, and you've gone all over the country, and you're doing these crystal activations. I mean, I'm not doing it justice, so I'm going to be quiet, even though this is like a radio show, but there's all of these. And I remember when I was did you get some of the crystals that we were a part of in Arkansas? I have this weird feeling that we were in a mine in Arkansas and someone got one and got it to you. Did that happen?
That was an think intent. Somebody did give it to me. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I've been given a lot of crystals, but I do have a recollection that somebody said I was in Arkansas this game. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Talk to us about the tour. Brian, she's on such an adventure. It's so cool.
Yeah. So I'll kind of go back to the beginning and what happened. So last year, or late spring, early summer, I was kind of was in this weird situation. I was renting a house. I was trying to buy a house, and things just weren't wasn't working out. And I had this weird, like I'm pulling from my chest because that's where I felt it was my heart. And I kept kind of hearing this little hushed voice saying, just put everything in storage. And I want to just say that when I was younger, I did put things in storage, and I was quote unquote homeless for 6 months, and I didn't like it. And I promised myself back then that I wouldn't go back there again. And so when I was hearing this voice, I put your house in storage. I'm like, I'm not doing that again. I promised myself I wasn't going to be homeless again. And I really it took me a while to kind of get over that, because I was judging myself on that past thing. But once I got through that, I remember waking up one day and I really had this feeling of allowing and surrendering. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to put my house in storage. And once I got to that place, then the downloads started coming in. And it's like, you need to travel consciously, Jill, with a mission, with a purpose. I was like, well, what does that mean? Like, what? And then I heard crystals are involved. You need to have crystals that are activated. You need to travel around the country and bury these crystals and create a crystal grid within the United States. And I was like, really? Like, that's kind of a big deal. and then I heard the next message. I'm like, why are we doing this? And this is what kept coming through: to expand heart energy in our country. So for us to have more compassion for each other, to see each other again, right? To help bring some love and light and healing to Gaia, because Mother Earth is what supports us. If we don't take care of her, we're in trouble, right? Then the third thing was to raise the vibration for a new world to emerge, for a new paradigm shift to kind of open and expand. So that was kind of the directions that I was given, the download that I was given. And so you guys know Annette and Michelle, friends of mine. They were both over my house, and I had gotten this download. I'm like, you guys, I'm going to just pass this by you. This is what I'm getting. And I told them, packing up my house, grabbing these crystals, activating them, put it around this grid. And then Annette started laughing. And I was like, what is up, sister? And she's like, I have had an email in my inbox for a long time. Every time I go to send it, I get a no. And I said, well, what is it? And she's like, so Annette and I have done retreats together in the past, and they're always like Mount Shasta or Sedona, like someplace other. And she said, Jill, I was called to bring people to Minneapolis and to anchor energy and have energy anchored here at sacred sites in Minneapolis. I'm like, are you kidding me? She said, no, you need to be a part of this. And this is where we're going to activate these crystals, anchor the light. And I knew going into, I was given the information that all these crystals were girded back to the Midwest, hence the heart of the nation, right? And it's about activating heart energy. So it was like gridding it back to the heartland, to the heart of the country. And so it just fell into place. And Annette and I were just like, wow. So in September last year, we worked together and we activated these crystals and we anchored these points here in Minneapolis and one in Wisconsin at Kinstone. And then I have all of these, I think I had 85 plus crystals. And then I started my journey, and I went out east, was my first tour. And then I went to the south. And then recently I took 5 weeks in Hawaii, and I went to 4 different islands in Hawaii. And I just recently got back, and now I'm planning my tour to the west. And, honestly, who's helping the most on this tour are the star hosts. So star hosts are people that are connected in their community, and they're like-hearted people, and they listen to what this is all about. And they're like, I want you to come and stay with me. And I have a community that would love to gather with you. And so when I visit these different places, I'm staying with different people in their homes or staying at hotels or Airbnbs, and they gather their community together, and we have a crystal grid ceremony, and then everybody's a part of that, and they're activating the crystal as well with their energy and their intentions. And I can't tell you guys how magical that has been, the connections that are happening and just the pure bliss and joy that comes out of these ceremonies. I will have to write a book about it someday, because it's just beautiful and profound. And so that's what I've been doing. I've been traveling since October, and I'm still traveling. I think, Kelly, when I originally talked to you about this, I'm like, yeah, I'll be done in May. It's not even close. I think I'll be traveling through the rest of this year and possibly beyond. I have people, so many of the ceremonies, before we get going, I said, does anybody have any questions? And someone always raised their hand. Are you going to do this outside of the United States? I'm like, perhaps I will. We'll see.
You know, what's interesting is I see the grid. Let's just say, let's just call this a map. And I don't know if it's the United States or whatever, but it's like these flower. So you're centered here in the Midwest, and you go do this, and then you come back to the Midwest, and then you go here, and then you go back to the Midwest. I'm poor people that are on the radio, but you're doing this, and it's like petals of a flower. And it could be the whole globe. It could be just in the U.S., but it's just, and you always come back to the Midwest and in that heart, and that heart is the middle of the flower.
Yeah,
that's all I got
Beautiful,
for you.
Kelly. I love it. And that's what I feel, though. But you know how you just said, and you always come back to the Midwest. And I've had some people, some of my star hosts that are kind of getting ready for me to come out west are like, when are you coming? When are you coming? When are you coming? And right now, I have this feeling I need to be here. I need to ground. I need to kind of just be in my center and align before I head out again. So there is something that I wanted to share that too, because I think we need to listen more to our flow of what we need to do, because so much our mind is like, oh, I better get going. Oh, I better get there, you know? And it's like, ooh, let's listen. Like there needs to be a pause right now. And so I'm really listening. This tour has really helped me learn how to be in the flow and listen to the energy. Not that I'm perfect at it, but I'm practicing it on a big time level, on like even where to drive. Like I drove my car to the south, and, you know, just even timing on things and just really, really listening to the energy of what's being called for, or where am I being called to go right now? It's helping me practice that on a bigger level. And
each petal is a different color. And the middle of it is a swirling multicolor, but each petal, each leg is a different color. I'm seeing it. They're like glowing like Tron, you know, the movie like Tron, like they're just like these vibrant colors. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Like that's just fantastic. So how can people support you on this journey? Because I definitely know that there's an equal energy exchange. How do people reach out and support you?
Yeah. So there's lots of different ways that you can support the Trip the Light Tour. If you're interested in being a star host, that's one way that you can email me and we can connect, and I can talk to you more about that. But there's a lot of people that are interested in that and hosting me. You could be a member. I have a membership available for people. You can also join a crystal grid ceremony. So all of those, even though I'm in person with people, I also have my community. So members are on Zoom live, and people can also attend that. So you can join a crystal grid if it works for you and be a part of that as well. And if you want to just straight down donate, you can donate money too, to just keep it on the road, because there's expenses with, you know, sometimes I fly, sometimes I drive, sometimes I'm staying in hotels if there aren't, like, you know, when I was in Arkansas, I never ended up connecting with people. So I stayed in Airbnb for a week. So there's expenses that come up. But yeah, there's lots of different ways that you can be a part of it. And one way is free. You can just go to my website and follow the Trip the Light Tour. And I have my travel vlog on there. There are some funny videos. There's ones where me crying and everything in between. But I promised myself when I was going to do this, Kelly and Brian, I promised myself I was going to be authentic and real. Mm-hmm. And when I was upset, I was going to film it. And when I'm sad, I'm going to film it. And when I'm joyful and just had the best day ever, I was going to film it. And so I've got it all on my travel vlog. If you want to go through the journey thus far with me, you can see that. And then I've got shared stories on there too, which a lot of my star hosts agreed to do what I call my shared story series. And it's just this, we're on a Zoom call or we're in person and we film it. And this is my belief, is that everybody has a story to share that is inspiring, that can help someone in some way, shape, or form. Even if it's like, oh my gosh, I'm going through that too, you know, or if she can do it, I can do it. Or if they, you know, they've done that, I can do it too. And so I've had the shared stories happen along the journey with a lot of my star hosts. And some other, people who have attended the crystal grid ceremonies, and it's been really beautiful. So that's also on my website. You can just go follow along for free and tap into that. And then if you're called to join, be a member, donate, come to a crystal grid ceremony, it's all good. It's all right there, wrapped up into a big bow.
When you were in Arkansas, did you get to go to Lake Ochita?
I did. And when I got there, I was called to I want to just share this with you, Kelly, because you're connected with that location. I was called to put 4 crystals in the earth there. And when I got there, I took my backpack and I journeyed out into that peninsula that goes out into Lake Ouachita. I took like a 45-minute to an hour hike out there, doused and found my location. And what I was called to do was to douse north, south, east, west, and create the crystals were laid down in points, pointing those directions. And the message that came through very loud and clear was that those 4 crystals were actually bridging to crystals that other people are laying in the earth. It was like a bridge. It was powerful and profound and completely surprising, because that was the first time I had had anything like that show up along the journey. And it was magical. Like Ouachita was something very cool.
Yeah, that was a fun adventure. Like I went with Terry Peterson, friend of the Edge, and she does breath work with Dr. Dave Matthews. I'm thinking Dave Matthews Band.
Dr. Dan. I talked to Dr. Dan. Yes, I talked with him, and he gave me some suggestions while I was there, which is so sweet.
Just a sweet man. We're going to have him on the show, and he's just great. So it was just this, but floating in that lake is like, it's just worth it. And then the fact that you have the crystals and there's all these, it's just, like, you're in Arkansas, and like you fly into the airport that everyone that goes and visits Walmart. So it's just like this weird adventure. And Arkansas was so surprising and so beautiful, but that lake was just yummy on every level.
Yep. I know. I wanted to get in it so bad, but it was cool. I was there in, I think, January or December, so it wasn't.
That would have been a little chilly for you. Like, right?
Yeah, it would have been a little chilly.
But you still but just by being around it, you can also get the benefit of it as well. That's amazing.
Feel it. It was magical.
I know. It kind of is like, woof, 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 woof. You're like, hi. Okay. Poor Brian. He's just like, they're crystalling out. They're like totally like being crazy. Okay. So that was our show, everybody. Jill, how do people find you?
Well, my website, which is it's my name, jillgoux.com. That's the way to find me. You can find Trip the Light Tour on there. You can find ways to work with me on there. I have dowsing. I have one-on-one, different ways to work with me in group. So, yeah, jillgoux.com.
And you got a lot going on. You are in the Edge Magazine partner directory. So if you want to find her there, Jill is here, there, and everywhere. She is absolutely a trusted friend, not only of our show, but of the Edge Magazine. We're so excited what you're doing. I can feel it. Like all your crystals that you've put in are all going like, hello, hello, hello. Okay. It's just magical. You guys, this was a fun one. We're so excited. On behalf of Kelly and Brian, Kelly and Jill, and all the beautiful crystals of the world, thank you. Thanks for listening to us today. This was a fun one. And if there's anything we can do for you, let us know. Have an amazing one.